walk in there in their main area, it's just like all their patents, plaques all over the walls. Like patent computer software, patent user way, computer works. Like I guess that was an area where they actually built like a lot of the stuff that people use on the computers now to this day was designed by them. They hold the patents for it.
Just little stuff, so it's just little tidbits for me to, even though I've done so much stuff, still learning. It's just the acronyms though, so I can quickly get to it without.
Yeah, you're the stuff of work.
Yeah, just little tidbits. I mean, I didn't do a lot. It's just little tidbits. But see, like on shoot video, when you get those tidbits that right there, that
Still doing it over there too.
yeah. Because the little stuff that he's saying to keep in mind about, that's a little bit of what I wrote down. Some of it, not a lot. I didn't do a lot. It's just a couple of things. Wow. There's one out there.
So you might make this like a weekend trip, vacation to Texas. No? Stay out there. One out there, got your paddleboard, floating down the river, cool beer, right by the city.
Yeah, we might be.
15 and 10.
You guys have your time around, I'll give you a spot out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's right by Lady Bird Lake, like you know, it's shallow, so you can see
Yeah.
it's like racing.
Couple more years.
Probably 200 to 300 people there, all bunched up on paddleboards and kayaks.
And now all back in just regular.
It's like,
Yeah, like trouble, especially the polar going. Like there's like this lake right there. There's no rock window. And of course got like covered right away.
I'd say a lot
Yeah,
of
probation
our
here.
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
Better than, you know, way dumber.
That'll be a good time.
That's the worst thing you ever done now.
Absolutely.
Won't be too cold at all. I don't think.
I don't even remember a winter here last year.
If you go early in the morning.
Right.
One kid is like way too late. Mr. Mr. Snyder,
Well, the ice storm, snowstorm.
but now he's got a girlfriend who's driving him crazy, so that's good.
Distracting.
He always comes to
The river is good to like.
like, yeah, he got it, yeah, he got it.
No, that's not.
Yeah, you know, I do. It's weird to watch him grow.
No, it really is.
How many's he got?
I'm a workaholic, but I feel like my brothers and sisters. I've been working since I was 14, and I really, it's kind of not like, so I never really, and I knew, honestly, that it's like my brothers and sisters, my mom had them back, when I turned 18, they look at me, they grown now, but they look at me like, and they're like in their 30s or 20s, and they every Thanksgiving. Hey, sister, you have a mom and a mom? Yeah, but I can sit back with my mom. Yeah, I did a lot. That's why I probably didn't get education. God always playing it. She had them and I had to help out the white man.
I gotta have
But then you see it.
Because you love them, you worry about them, you protect them, you can't, you know, you get so much. Yeah. Judge usually said if that's episode. Whatever those sort of ladies said,
I didn't
right.
But that was more the wife than the kids. Like, I guess that's reasonable, I suppose.
Yeah.
You're not gonna make any money.
You have to look at it differently. You have to keep yourself, protect yourself, because once you go, you gotta, your family fall apart, huh?
They're so dangerous. Like, I mean, it's not like so much.
Yeah. About the three little ones.
With the two in the front.
Yeah, well, two in the back. I didn't know
Really know anything about it until someone has to go to the assistant. I got a scooter.
Right.
That's like, not bad. I got that. It's fun to ride. I can't get out of the way.
Yeah.
On the plate, I have this power to see like, I can't get out of the way. But that, I can't get out of the way. It's more dangerous.
Yeah. I said, I was a three-wheel, control it better, it's really not too much to it, so my motorcycle itself, yeah, you really
Walking the wheels around, goes to like the unsafest thing in the world, with one wheel in the front, it's like the safest thing. My neighbor's got a couple of them. Her and her married yet. Girl area,
I think the few that I did, I mean, I almost never had one of those.
Well, I'm sure you can buy
I'll be like chilling with my roommates and I was like, and then I'm like, I gotta go to the gym right now. I just kidding, these kids I'm 29.
They're out there by now.
That's why I always get like old traffic stuff and mix it up. So way cheaper. And I can make it my own. If I want to, I'll show you a picture of my computer that I just don't.
You know what?
It's $600. I got it's running great now. I have like $100 a month.
No, it's just, I got used to this giving me realize that to get them.
Certain amount of CCs, then you have, I think faster.
When you're not to ride it without the horse, so what you're drinking, you ride it on the road or the sidewalk. On the front lawn. So I can that now,
I
I figure if the gospel was broken.
Oh, it wakes up early. Yeah, because like, it's like 3 I mean, I'll work out for like 4 hours a day.
I used to buy
I know.
You hear about animal vitamins? Yeah, that makes sense. That what?
Halfway there, you like, okay, let me go on this.
I had like a little chunk of I got the red one.
Protein powder.
I don't know, 1780 seconds to figure it out. It's a digital word relations organization. It says the network card driver should be advised to be updated to the latest value. It also improved the device's performance and capability of hardware. This is sending it, like, this is popping up. That looks good. But I'm like, I'm not somebody can look at this and this will pop up anytime. Depends on how to I close it and call you out of smart.
I got a pee.
All right, let's get started on commission documents and section. That's what we'll finish up with today, the information that they need to collect for, section. Now, you guys have a copy of the commission document, the latest and greatest, also on that flash drive. So what I would recommend to you is always use a new one. Don't copy and paste, it gets you in trouble. Always use a new copy every time you break it out. Because copy and paste, just you miss stuff. And then the TOC is going to go, hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to be filling this out every time. The paperwork is very important, and they're very particular that it's right. So it's an Excel document. It's a really smart, almost a living document. It interacts with actually our cloud and the enterprise portal and all of those things right from the document. But there's stuff that you have to do in the beginning. The first thing you want to do is make sure that our SOP is powered up. You got a cell modem on it, and you collect this information. You want to get this into the TOC ASAP. That gives them time to pick up the ticket, put your stuff, and you're busy doing other stuff anyways. Okay? So you want to get that in and done as soon as possible. The earlier you get it in the day, if you get it in before noon, perfect. That gives them plenty of time to get it done, make any corrections they need to make, and get you guys in a position where you're not waiting on anybody. And that's the whole process for you not to be waiting on anybody. Okay? Who's doing the document?
Trying to get this plans pulled up so I can reference.
Sean, you got 30 minutes.
He's already getting it pulled up.
Please, Ryan. I got it up, Ryan.
With that 115% zoom. Yeah, I'm trying to do the plans so I can show the difference. How we use the plans to get a lot of information. to Franklin, North Carolina.
What do you think?
Is it?
Alright, we'll just do it.
Can we plug this one in so I can, I got the actual plans pulled up. Pulling it up to the Harbor Parade. So that one has an example.
What's that?
Plus I have the plans. and
Sure.
everything, so we can use the plans as an example on how to complete site plan. Unless you just wanna run through the commission document first.
This I was gonna have you do the commission and document
Okay.
portion of it, and then tomorrow we'll show them how to go through the plans and all that other stuff.
That works for me. Alright, so this is the commission document we use. It's also, sometimes it can look overwhelming, like there's a lot of stuff, especially with all these different tabs down there. Well, it is. But, it actually becomes very simple. A lot of stuff, comes like subconscious to you. You'll just be like, okay, I know this goes to this tab, this is on this tab, this is this tab. And honestly, when it comes to like testing a lot of this stuff that's needed to do the full commission, I mean, you'll end up eventually learning to where you're running multiple tests at the same time. You're running security tests while you got the units cooling, because it can take 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes of those running. So, and just like, it's just little things that'll be learned throughout just repetition of commissioning it. So just like an example on one, while he's doing that, I'll just keep talking. So while like the transition between doing your cooling test or heating test, or from your heating to cooling test, the units will have like a 10-minute delay. So at that point, when you switch it over, you sent the command for it, you can actually go in, because our zone temp sensors, we have to, like he was talking about earlier, you had to disconnect it to make sure it goes to 32, and that's wired to the correct RTU. So there's actually a screenshot that you have to take of that reading 32. So while you have that 10-minute lapse between units are not going to do anything, you can do all the zone tests and get the screenshot. So it's just little things. You'll learn little tricks with different tricks of your own that just makes it a lot faster. So starting out, I mean, we have the type of installation. So is it a retrofit, a new construction, or a recommissioning? So he was talking about the recommissioning, when you go in and you upgrade their system and they want a full test of their whole site, everything that's been installed. This is pre-existing equipment. So this equipment might have been installed 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10 years ago, and they want it to be updated and retested, so then they get the warranty again. So once they get the recommission done. So we also have the new construction. I mean, we know what new construction is. Retrofit, I've seen it actually with the new construction and retrofit kind of like be like a debate. It's like, well, this is a retrofit, but it's actually still a new construction, because a lot of times your retrofit is they're leaving everything that was already in that building existing. So we're going to try to use the same pipes where their sensors were located. So basically we demo in a retrofit. We're demoing an existing EMS system and putting our system in for our client. New construction, they're building it, building the walls, all the above. We select our client, whatever client we have, we'll select that. The site number that will be sent to you, you'll have that information on what the site number is. Unique site name, you don't have to worry about that, just put like an NA in there. The address, city zip, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. The IP address. So a lot of the clients, you won't know the IP address right at the beginning. TOC will have it. There is some clients out there that we have different division charts and different things we can use to get the IP address, but TOC will have the IPs. So in that IP address, I just put the cell modem temporarily. I think it tells you not to when you click on it. It says not the cell modem, it wants the client. But when TOC gets this and opens this document, they need to know the IP address to actually connect to the system. So they're gonna want that, and then we'll do that, and then at the end, when we do network cutover, that's when you change that to the clients. Square footage, that's important to have in there, especially for the site cleaning when they're gonna do programming. It's always on the plans, it's somewhere on the plans. A lot of people are like, I don't feel like looking through it, I'm just gonna estimate it. Well, sometimes you'll send that in, you'll go in here and you'll say, oh, what's approximately 12,000 square feet? Well, we already know what the square footage is, so we see that come in and we're like, hey, why is it not matching? So that's another thing TOC will ask. EMS2 panel, that's the SLP. It has a designated breaker, 120 volts, that powers that panel. We want to know exactly which electrical panel it's in, which here, for example, P2 and circuit 18. So it's breaker 18 in there. And that actually will end up having a label put beside that breaker. So the SLP panel ID on the inside, you'll see a number, it'll have a serial number. Most of them have it on the face now. So that's just the serial number on it, latitude, longitude, Google Maps. Click on your location where you're at, scroll up, it'll tell you if you're on the site, it'll tell you that information, latitude, longitude. Commissioner, yep, it's you doing it. Your role will be whether you installed it or just commissioning. It's a drop down, you'll see that. Of course, the company that you're installing it. The date, FedEx tracking, that's if you have the box of parts that was shipped there, it'll have the FedEx tracking number on there. It's not necessarily important that it has to be in the document, but it's just one step if you want to make sure it's actually like thorough, you went through it, it's just a more filled out document, it just looks better having that tracking on there. And if anybody, say one of the PMs later on, they can pull this commission document up and see that tracking number and see what exact list of parts were shipped to that. So it's just a faster process. They have all that information stored.
Being thorough with this information is really important for
Yes.
troubleshooting too. So if we can reference what you put on this form, look at the pictures you took while you were on site, and use the enterprise portal. That's how we're able to diagnose and be able to tell you what's wrong remotely. So having all this stuff done, thoroughly is a huge advantage for us, and we really got to have it done 100% correct every time.
So definitely up here, we want to change that IP address. I would go ahead and change it. I mean, they say don't make any changes and save the form, but I would go ahead and change that to the 10.1, the 192.168.10.1, and I would save it like that, just because it'll come up later on why. So this is all automated, so it pre-populates it as you fill out the different parts of the tabs. All the information will come back to there. So like all your relays, all your CO2 sensors, whatever you click on the different tabs will populate there. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, there we go. See that 24 one pair used for comms. That there is certified. That's like,
Yeah, you're saying you
yes,
saw it had
that's
the
like,
right wire in it.
Right hand up, you did it. I wasn't gonna say on the Bible, but I wasn't gonna do that. And then our screen types, UVC, doesn't have an Android, so that's our touch screen. So once it notice it have a separate touch screen on site there. And I guess it doesn't here. So power wall, I think y'all are familiar with that, or notice that huge panel wall, everything's in it. Some of our clients will have the SLP will actually be inside of that power wall. So that's what that stands for. That's a yes or no answer. Here's all our first main important tab is the HVAC tab. The top up here where you see he's at, that's how many HVACs you have there. So if you have, say you have, okay, we'll go with that. So you have 2 RTUs and you have 1 unit heater. Well, you still have 3 total HVACs there because we're controlling all 3. So, but we'll just go with this example. We have 3 RTUs. You can see where it'll already crop it up to where you only have 3 in there. So then you just go through DZC if it's installed. If it's a DZC, you get your wire pulled and installed. is it a DZC RT? So you select that. If it's not, it's the in space, you leave that one blank. You don't put X's, we just put X's in there. And then micro IO, if it has a micro IO, like we're talking about on that DZC RT, it needs to be noted in there. Controller type, they're all UBCs, that's how they're controlled. The units served, the area. So the first one would be like RTU1, and we'll go with, I'm trying to think how, the plans will show you where the units are, where they're set in the building. So you can actually do a lot of this information just from the plans before you even get to the site, but then you gotta confirm it. So we'll go with, this is how we would type it. So I'm standing at the vestibule right now. I just walked in the front vestibule through the front doors. They opened up. I look at this that he has here. That's going to tell me here's the sales floor in front of me, right front. So the unit's going to be right over here in the front, right side of the sales floor. And then if he's got RTU2's left front, I know it's going to be right over here to the left. So it's always based upon, the location is based upon you're walking in the store and which way the units are. So if you have a unit all the way in the back area, that's going to be your stock room, your RTU3 stock room, because that's where, it's the area it serves. So some of them will have, the unit will be in the stock room, but it'll also have a duct that branches off and goes to like an office or a cash office or a break room. So you can just do stock / break / office. You know, it's the area it serves. Manufacturer, that's who makes it. I mean, I love Linux units.
That's the question. So, how are you identifying which areas to serve? Like, talking about the ceiling?
Usually you can see,
ducts?
yeah, you can reference across with the plans and kind of see like where their duct will run out and stuff, where it goes. But also you can, a lot of times you can go in there and you can tell, like for example, here we only have a unit on this side, a unit on this side, and a unit in the back. So we know everything that's in the back, say the office and the break room, everything's in the back. Well, we know that's all gonna be served from that rear unit. Not always true, but we would see a duct running to it. So it's really, a lot of the sites you'll probably go to are not gonna be like drop ceilings and stuff. You'll be able to actually know. So I mean, if you got a section that's drop ceiling in there, there's a good chance there's only possibly one unit in there and the rest of the floor doesn't have drop ceiling. You can see the duct, you know, in the, so I mean, kind of cross-referencing. It's more or less, it's the help guide that we know what units where. So I mean, in the store. So I mean, and I've seen before, I've showed up there and they labeled the units totally different, numbered totally different than what the plans say. We follow the plans. So even if they're saying this is RTU number 4 and the plans say that's supposed to be RTU number 3, follow the plans because that's how everybody, we're gonna reference it. So, and that was just a sticker they put on. So the model number, the serial numbers, the different things on that is, they're gonna be on a placard that's on the actual side of the RTU. So you can take a picture of that and then go back and fill in all the information on it. And then that same HVAC page had the different, it asked the ZTS, that's where the acronyms all come into play. Because they got ZTS, DTS, CO2, IRB, which is Isolation Relay Board. So it has all your different, all the different sensors. So we know what sensor is attached to which unit. And sometimes it has to be programmed to that unit. Like a CO2, it has to be known that it's wired to that specific unit. So here's the energy tab. This is where we have, again at the top, just like the HVAC, we have the meters. But how many meters do we have? We have 1, we have 2, 3. Most of them y'all will probably be dealing with is probably 1. So every now and then there's 2. If there's 2 separate main feeds coming into a building, we want to capture both of them. So you just do the 1, like you see, it's the main coming in. It's not sub-metering, it's just the main meter. Click it's installed, meter description, you can do building main, whatever you want to put in there, MDP like main distribution panel, the type of meter, The Power Scout 3 HD is actually the one that was out there, has a little display on it. We're not using backnet with any of those, even though they're capable. We're just still using our RS485 or standard 24-1 pair. So the meter scaling is also important because they got to know which one is on there, because they can program it based upon that. So if we have our clamp style here is a 400 amp, they have stickers on them that tell us this is a 400 amp on there. We want to make sure it's programmed for a 400 amp because it won't read accurate. And all the roll coils, they're 2400. So all these blue ones are always 2400. So the type of power, the voltage, of course, where is the meter powered from, which panel and circuits power the meter. So that's always important too, because that's another thing that's going to have a label. Like I had a label maker, that's one thing that's not added to that. We do send the labels there, but I like having my own label maker because sometimes I'll make extra like labels and stuff, or you know, if you run across the site or something, or say you don't have the sheet that's sent to it, or somewhere it got lost, and then I always have a label maker so I can type up those labels, because you can't finish a commission without having the pictures of that and labeled. So that's another good thing to have. Is Office Depot, Home Depot, they all sell them. The label makers are usually pretty cheap, but the little cartridges to go in there, they get pricey. So which one are we gonna hop to? Some sensors?
Well, what I'm doing is, all these ones that I'm coloring in blue are the tabs that you gotta get the basic information for to get the site programmed and cleaned, okay? So, all of these things, you know, we need to go through, every site's gonna have the OSD, outside air, outside light, every one. So even the location at this point doesn't make any difference. We can put that in later, but for the basic programming, they know that it's gonna have outside air, outside light, we're gonna have security. You know, does this have to have snow melt? Well, Aldi has snow melt on a lot of them, where they have electric heated coils in their sidewalks and stuff, especially way up north. So, in which case we're gonna be putting CTs onto those so we can monitor them, make sure they're going on and off like they're supposed to, because it's all electric coils in the concrete. So, once we get all this done, you know, are we doing snow melt? If we're not doing snow melt, we're gonna hide those, depending on where in the country we're at. Okay. Always hide the information that we're not using. Clean up your form. It's easy for someone to look at. They can go right to it. We don't need a bunch of, you know, extra stuff that's unnecessary on there. If it's not being used, hide it, put it away on this job. Okay. Keep it all clean. All the rest of this would get check marks. So,
And then the I/O, a lot of the stuff further on this, I'll definitely go through. It'll be tomorrow with that. Like putting in to show like how to get where your I/Os and your input, because for programming sake, they need to know where that wire or where the sensor is terminated in that SLP. So which input number. So that's where that comes into play. You need some outputs when it comes to dimming. So we can see all the acronyms over there. So a lot of that, I mean, most of the time over there, it's usually just we look at, is it gas, electric, the ones past all of our sensors. We're looking more, is it gas, electric? If it is, if you know it's a heat pump, of course, select that. But we're also looking more or less, is it, you know, for the dual stage, and then that CES is important. So if it is a CES unit, we want that checked. So then whatever sensor is on there.
but the rest of the readings, this is the most important part right here for getting the site programmed. What we find out for the rest of it is stuff we'll have to add on. Where the CO2 ties in here, you know, whichever one it's on, most of these only get one. And And usually, you know, it's somewhere around there, number 2. So at this point, we've collected all the information from the summary, the HVAC, the lighting, the energy tab, and the sensors tab. We collected all the information. Make sure the SLP's powered up, get it on a cell modem, get it turned in. They can program the site now. They're going to verify all the other evidence that we collect, all the other verifications. You're going to fill in all these spaces, but it's after the site cleaning. So it's something that you can work on while you're waiting on somebody to get the site going, right? If you follow that process, you won't be waiting on somebody else to be able to finish your job and get you through the rest of the day. We just wanted to take a few minutes now and show you this information. We're going to go into this commissioning document and how to collect all this information pretty in depth tomorrow. We're going to work on this panel in here, and hopefully I'm going to be able to get our head of engineering to give you guys a little presentation for an hour tomorrow. So that's what we got for today. This document, if you get a chance to look at it later, fine. If you don't, fine. But this document, this is after installing everything correctly. Filling this document out correctly is the next most important thing.
Now, this portion of it, is this before we even start to install, so they know what we're installing?
So in most all cases, your high voltage work is done. Your SLP is already mounted and powered for you. There's boxes and raceways set for you. So if you get this on and get a cell modem hooked up to it, then it's already talking where the TOC can see it. Okay? And they're going to set it up, and they're actually going to make it a site in the cloud. All right? They're going to be able to put all this stuff down because the description, RTU1 serves this area. That's in there, you know. This is a CES unit. That's in there already. All this stuff is the groundwork, but then the readings that we collect throughout the commissioning will back up everything, and you're verifying that you're getting the same readings on site that we're getting here in the TOC. So it's checks and balances to make sure everybody's getting the job done and that all the equipment's right, that all the jumpers are right, and all of our readings are 100% correct.
So what this is that what you just showed us is the kickoff before we make any changes.
Correct. So this
And then
is what
it adapts.
basic programming has to be.
Right, and that's when we tie in TOC to what we're doing, and it's checks and balances. But this is done before we make any change. We get on site, we gather that information, shove it off to TOC, and then move on with the installation, taking those pictures of those tests, updating this as we go when we're in between testing periods, and that's
Right.
what we're going to go over tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty much you can submit this document at any point in time, like he was saying, as long as you have power to that UVC right there, and you have a cell modem that can be powered. Because all that information is stored on that SD card and that UVC, so even if nothing is even installed, I mean, like tomorrow I'm gonna go over an example just using the plans. I can submit, it's not advised to do that, don't ever do that. You wanna verify everything on site, but I can create a whole entire site cleaning document just from looking at the plans.
Do you have does TOC have a specific document titling methodology? As far as the name of the document that you submit, you know, when you make it, you
Yeah, we're gonna go over all that with you.
Okay.
It's usually client, site number, location.
There we go.
And then how is that, I'm sorry, I might have trying not to go up, but how is that submitted? Are we emailing that? Is it
Yeah,
cloud?
it's through an email. So there's one email address that everybody will use. So when you make that email, it'll contain this document. The title will say something like Aldi 123 Baltimore site cleaning. You know, it'll have this information, and then you give them a call and say, hey, I just submitted a document for cleaning. Make sure you have that in your queue. They'll go look at that, they'll look at the document and say, yeah, you're first in line. I'll get this cleaning done as soon as possible.
And then
I'll
do you
call
get a
back.
confirmation at the end?
Yeah, they'll call you back and say, hey, look, you didn't put the name for RT1 in there. Is that right front, left front? What is it? Or they'll say, look, I got everything confirmed. configured, you should be good to go.
Yeah, you'll have your own separate area where you submit all the documents and stuff.
The documents go to a Zendesk
Okay.
website, and then we'll set you up a box.net for pictures, because we don't want the pictures besides, we want them the actual size, so we can see them when we're looking at them. So, you know, typically, if you took 50 pictures, it'd be way too big to email, but we can put them on box.net.
Okay.
And then we can leave them full size, you know, 5, 10 megabyte pictures, and have the detail where it's not blurry, and I can see, hey, you got that wire on the wrong terminal right
Are
now.
you guys aware of problems with this commissioning process, and what are the potential pitfalls? Like, this doesn't work, this document doesn't work, or communication issues, or things like that.
Yeah, so that's the very first thing you want to verify. Can I get this panel powered up, first of all? I mean, you can't start without that. Can I get connectivity to this panel?
You'll see green lights on these.
Yeah.
They have the green lights.
Should be mounted and powered before you get on site, okay?
So if we get connectivity, and if there is any programming issues whatsoever, are you guys able to run in and fix that then?
Yeah, so all the programming is done remotely.
From the TOC.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
That's why you gotta have this panel powered, so the UVC's powered, and the cell modem is powered. As long as those things are done, as long as they can connect to the site, they can program the site. They can make all the changes we need.
But that's also why we're suggesting to get into this process as soon as possible, because if there is a problem with the connectivity, if there is a problem with the power, if there's a problem with, you know, any of the information that's on this document, you want to get out ahead of that as soon as possible.
So that's where I've actually, sometimes I went in when I was doing installs and everything, I'd go in, so I knew it was a 2-day job. So I would go in, install it, start installing it. If I had another guy with me, a coworker, we'd start installing it. One of us would either stop, we could pick and choose what job we wanted to do. And like, so say he started on this document, well, we were both installing first thing in the morning, he started on this document, and it's already late now, so we don't want to submit it late. You know, we don't want to submit the programming. Say it was the electrician, we were waiting for them to mount our panel. Well, they mounted it, we already had the document done, so the next morning, right when we get on site, we're submitting that site cleaning. We finish it up that evening, it's submitted that morning. While we're waiting, while it's being programmed, we're continuing the installation. So then next thing you know, it's like they're calling, hey, we're done, the programming's done. Once you have everything installed, just verify that everything looks correct to you on our side. So the next thing you're done installing, you have all that done. So you, instead of sitting there waiting for them to finish it, you had something else you could do. Because if you do the full install and then you submit this in, now you're just gonna be sitting there waiting. You're just like, hey, what's taking this guy so long? So,
And if they're busy, it could take a couple hours. But you're gonna be there all day anyways. Get it in early, it's a non-issue. You're ahead of the game, and they'll get it done. That's it, guys. Have a great evening.
No, throughout today, I've been noticing subtle electrician bashing. I'll leave it alone until tomorrow.
Hey, I get it all the time.
Yeah.
I get engineering bashing all the time too, so it's okay.
No, it's all right. We're
just wait to see how much bashing you get.
we're monkeys with cameras. I know it.
No, absolutely not. The only thing I always had to say, and I mean, until I started doing controls like this, you know, I know for a fact that bigger is better as an electrician, period.
Oh, well.
When in doubt,
No,
put a bigger one in.
That's not accurate. That's not accurate, because as a matter of fact, we're pulling we're working on a solar run where we're pulling 5 parallel runs with 400 MCM, because going bigger is not better, because bending the 950s that would be required is, that's a nightmare.
Well, I'm talking about like parking lot lights,
Oh.
doing, you know.
You can always go bigger without risking the system not failing. Right. Yeah, no, you're not wrong there.
And that's what happens with Comware. They want to put in 18 gauge wire,
Well, AD, better.
All right.
So, and they only do natural, natural